Revealing secrets
What makes you tick, Johnny?
and lies.
I'm not telling you.
Friday, 9:30, ITV1.
You're right.
If you're feeling uncomfortably bloated or suffering from painful trapped wind, try Deflatine from Rennie. It can swiftly and gently relieve the pressure without embarrassment. Take the pressure off with Deflatine.
Claire! I still need your report.
Nearly finished. The office party's in an hour. At last. Now I can uplift flagging spirit. And thanks to the Boots No. 7 beauty consultant, radiate beauty and inner calm.
Hi!
Thanks for popping in.
The Rottweiler got me. Oh, Merry Christmas, Alison.
New Harpic Power Foam. It clings, then expands under the rim, so you can clean the whole toilet effortlessly. New Harpic Power Foam. Expert cleaning power.
Hello, my dears. What have you got for me today? Let's have a little look. What is this? No, I'm not so sure about. No. A little bit dirty, but could be.
At Morrison's, we've more great offers this Christmas. Buy a litre bottle of Harvey's Bristol Cream for only £5.95. There's £4.50 off 24 bottles of Stella Artois. And there's £2 off a bottle of Lindemann's Bin 65 Chardonnay. Because at Morrison's, we know you expect the very best for less this Christmas.
Well, that looks practical and yet attractive. This one, or this one? Yeah, good, it's surprisingly warm.
It's gorgeous.
Is it up or is it down?
Down.
Get off it.
You see, you're paying for the label.
Yeah.
Which one?
But which one?
Doesn't matter. What's the matter with you?
You got a mouse there? What are you celebrating?
Last day undercover.
Any excuse for celebrations.
Men.
Morning.
Morning.
Bag of bait, please. Will you take a check?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Morning.
Don't worry, Chris. At the post office, you can cash personal checks, make cash or cheque deposits, and it's free. The post office. What a good idea.
But we don't want to give you that.
Funny. Very funny.
Sorry.
Now, slightly later than advertised, Trevor McDonald has the day's top stories in the news at 10.
Pop mogul Jonathan King jailed for child sex crimes. 2 men charged tonight over mainland bomb attacks. A deal struck to end the fighting in northern Afghanistan. And vitamin companies get a record fine for price fixing.
From ITN, the ITV News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Good evening. The pop star and record producer Jonathan King is tonight beginning a 7-year jail sentence for sex assaults on teenage boys at the height of his fame. The Old Bailey had heard how he often cruised around London in his Rolls Royce, looking for boys to take back to his home. He'll be on the sex offenders register for the rest of his life. After his sentencing, King released a video message insisting that he was innocent and saying that British justice was unfair. Here's Shuli Ghosh.
Tonight, the flamboyant showbiz personality is behind bars. Music mogul Jonathan King used his fame to prey on impressionable youngsters. Now he's been jailed for sexually abusing 5 14 and 15-year-olds in the 1980s. Today, the judge told him he'd abused the trust of his victims.
Mr. King's been in the position where he can use the record business, the fact that he's a celebrity, his wealth, and focus that on the actual children that were abused.
King would cruise the streets of London looking for starstruck teenagers. Often he would approach them with the simple line, "Do you recognise me?" He would lure them to his expensive home in Bayswater, where he would show them pornography before sexually assaulting them. Sometimes he gave them presents afterwards. His arrest last November provoked a flood of allegations dating back to the 60s. On a website recording made before he was jailed, King vehemently denies any wrongdoing.
Nobody has claimed that there is any medical evidence, no forensic evidence, no letters that confirm any kind of indecency, no obscene photographs, nothing whatsoever, no corroboration by any other people. It is simply their word against mine.
Everyone's gone to the moon.
King first came to public attention when he was still at university in Cambridge. This song was a huge worldwide hit.
When the sun shines on the mountains.
His next notable chart appearance was the hit Una Paloma Blanca. Already a millionaire in his 20s, King had his sights set on all aspects of the music industry. He produced the first album from Genesis, setting them on the road to superstardom, and also claimed to have discovered the Bay City Rollers and 10cc. In fact, he boasted that at one time he had 20 records in the top 30, all under different names. In the 70s, King was a regular face at a Surrey disco known as the Walton Hop, where it's alleged he picked up boys. Singer Jimmy Percy, who worked there as a teenager, says King was arrogant even then.
I would think he was totally arrogant from the word go, and anybody that's met Jonathan King would think he was a very educated, university-type, arrogant person.
Now the pop impresario's world has come crashing down. Jonathan King will now be put on the sex offenders register indefinitely, and he's disqualified from ever working with children. Tonight he starts his 7-year prison sentence, something his lawyer says he won't find easy. Shuli Ghosh, ITN at the Old Bailey.
In the past hour, 2 men have been charged with 3 terrorist bombings in Britain in the last 9 months. One was charged with causing an explosion in Birmingham 2.5 weeks ago. The other with 2 explosions in West London in August and March. The attacks were believed to have been the work of the real IRA. Harry Smith has tonight's developments.
The 2 men were charged tonight after 6 days of questioning at London's top security Paddington Green police station. One was charged with causing the explosion outside the BBC television centre and the explosion in Ealing. Both blasts took place earlier this year. The second man has been charged with causing an explosion in Birmingham earlier this month. Both men are also charged with conspiracy to cause explosions likely to endanger life. The men were among 7 arrested by anti-terrorist police in London and Liverpool last week as part of an investigation into a suspected bombing campaign by the dissident group, the Real IRA. One of the men is also charged with possessing explosives found during searches in West Yorkshire and with firearms offences. 4 other men arrested during the raids have now been released. A 7th is still being held at Paddington Green. The 2 men charged will appear at Belmarsh Magistrates Court in East London tomorrow. Harry Smith, ITN.
ITV News has learned tonight that a deal has been done to end the final battle in northern Afghanistan between the Taliban and the Northern Alliance. Late-night talks to end the attack on Kunduz, the last northern city held by the Taliban, have ended with a ceasefire agreement. Robert Moore explains the implications.
Northern Alliance forces besieging the city of Kunduz are reported tonight to have reached a deal with the trapped Taliban troops. Reports suggest the Taliban will surrender and thousands of civilians will be evacuated to safety. The fate of al-Qaeda fighters loyal to bin Laden is far less clear. ITV's correspondent Andrea Catherwood reports the fall of Kunduz could represent the end of the war in northern Afghanistan.
After 2 hours of negotiation, we were invited in to witness the surrender of the Taliban. Both leaders said they hoped the fighting in Kandahar would end also. Tonight they are still negotiating the mechanics of the surrender.
At Fort Campbell in Kentucky, the home of the 101st Airborne Division, President Bush sought to rally his troops and warned their work has just begun. The most difficult steps, he said, still lie ahead, and he had this message for any regime that harbours terrorists.
If you train or arm a terrorist, you are a terrorist. If you feed a terrorist or fund a terrorist, you're a terrorist and you will be held accountable by the United States and our friends.
It's still somewhat unclear whether American or British forces will deploy in significant numbers to Afghanistan, either to join the hunt for bin Laden or to offer increased security to the humanitarian effort. It seems that Britain's small number of troops already on the ground will not now be joined by a larger stabilisation force. Although the Prime Minister in the Commons said flexibility was now the key.
I think a degree of flexibility here, far from being a hindrance, is actually the only sensible position to have. And both ourselves and the United States, indeed other coalition partners, have got troops on standby. How and when and where we deploy them, that's a matter we can decide day by day, and we should retain the flexibility to do so as we wish.
The government has privately made it clear tonight that any large-scale deployment of British forces is off the agenda for the moment. Instead, the focus has reverted to diplomacy, as next week in Germany, Afghanistan's major tribal and ethnic leaders gather to try and form a provisional government. Robert Moore, ITN, Downing Street.
The Taliban said today they have lost contact with Osama bin Laden and have no idea where he is. But the spokesman representing their leader, Mullah Omar, said Taliban soldiers would fight to the death to defend the areas they still hold in southern Afghanistan. The spokesman was being questioned by our correspondent, Bill Neely.
He is the smiling face of the Taliban and the top aide of its leader. Tayyab Agha came from its last stronghold of Kandahar today to send a message, and an uncompromising one it was. The world, he said, should forget the attacks on New York and Washington.
You should forget the 11 September attacks, because now there is a new fighting against Muslims and Islam.
Britain and America, he said, are now the terrorists. You say forget September the 11th, but the British Prime Minister Tony Blair and George Bush say they will never forget September the 11th.
This is their problem. This is not our problem. The attacks have taken place in America.
The armed men of the Taliban were all around him, but Osama bin Laden, he claimed, isn't around anymore. Osama bin Laden was your guest. What is the Taliban's relationship with him now?
So there is no relation right now.
None.
There is no communication.
Do you have any idea where he is?
We have no idea that where he is.
As his fellow countrymen looked on, not understanding a word and controlled by a sword, he claimed 2,000 Afghans have been killed or injured in the war so far. We've no way of telling if this is true. The Taliban, he said, still hold Kandahar and will keep fighting.
Our forces, they are well disciplined, and we will defend our nation, and we will defend our religion.
He answered our questions behind the walls of a camp where the Taliban keep us penned in. A leader of a regime that bans television, shuns foreigners, and virtually locks women up, he was ordered to break all the rules today by his leader Mullah Omar, who he said has not fled. This was just about as defiant a message as it's possible to send. Not just no surrender, but no talking and no idea where Osama bin Laden is. It's very difficult to see how there can be any solution here, except a military one. Bill Neely, ITN, in Taliban-controlled southern Afghanistan.
A 94-year-old American woman has become the latest victim of anthrax in a case which is baffling scientists and worrying people across the United States. Ottilie Lundgren, who died today, lived alone in a remote village in Connecticut and hardly ever went out. An investigation has begun into how and where she contracted the deadliest form of the disease, inhalation anthrax. A group of European chemical companies which make vitamins were today fined a total of more than £500 million for operating a price-fixing cartel. The vitamins which they make went into cereals, biscuits and drinks. The European Commission called the way they pushed up prices the worst case it had ever seen. Chris Choi has more.
Shoppers paid too much for vitamins and for foods with added supplements. Respected names in the pharmaceutical industry met behind closed doors and illegally plotted to keep prices high. Today the EU meted out record fines of £500 million.
It is particularly unacceptable that this illegal behavior
concerned substances which are vital elements for nutrition and essential for normal growth and maintenance of life.
8 vitamin firms, including Roche, the biggest tonight, face massive fines. Cereals, juices, milk, biscuits, this illegal price rigging affected a whole range of everyday products with added vitamins. And the timing too couldn't have been worse for consumers. The worst period coincided with a surge in the popularity of food supplements. But, put simply, we should have been paying less.
Cartels are really corporate muggers. What they do is they meet in secret and they jack up prices. And even if they just jack up prices to the middlemen, the people that make your cornflakes or make your biscuits, you're still paying in the end. And if you have a cartel like this running for 10 years, you paid an awful lot of money to people who are basically mugging you.
The company fines were huge, but so were the profits. Vitamin C alone raked in over £150 million. When the price-fixing cartels were smashed in 1998, prices fell. And tonight, the industry claims competition is once again healthy. Chris Choi, ITN.
Jurors at the Sarah Payne murder trial heard today from witnesses who had met the man accused of her murder. They described Roy Whiting as a loner with few friends. The court also heard about black plastic ties found in the back of Whiting's van. Adrian Britton was in court.
Comforting each other, Michael and Sarah Payne, who have been listening to witnesses describe the personality of the man charged with their daughter's murder. Roy Whiting was a loner with few friends, according to the person who employed him as a labourer. The jury was told he seldom socialised with his employer and always arrived for work scruffily dressed and in the same clothes. He denies murdering 8-year-old Sarah, whose naked body was found in a Sussex field in July last year. Deborah Bray told the trial how she found Sarah's shoe, the only item of the girl's clothing ever recovered. It was discovered in a hedge near the village of Coolham and, according to the prosecution, revealed vital forensic evidence incriminating the defendant. The court also heard today that police found black plastic ties in Roy Whiting's van, which the prosecution allege he was driving when he kidnapped Sarah Payne. Dean Fuller, the man who sold the van to Whiting a week before Sarah's abduction, told the jury that those plastic ties were not in the vehicle when he sold it. Adrian Britton, ITN, at Lewis Crown Court.
ITV agreed a deal with B-Sky B today for the satellite station to broadcast ITV1 and ITV2 on its Sky digital service. ITV1 started today on channel 103. ITV2 will follow shortly on channel 226. People with conventional TV aerials and, of course, ITV digital and cable will still be able to watch ITV1 as normal. The Football Players' Union and the Premier League seem further apart than ever tonight over the impending football strike. One club chairman talked today about sacking players who go on strike. Felicity Barr reports.
Tonight, as Arsenal face Deportivo La Coruña in the Champions League, the prospect of a strike by the players seems more likely than ever, with the footballing authorities and the Players' Union still unable to reach a deal. The row between the clubs and the Professional Footballers Association is all about cash. The clubs get £700 million a year from television money. The PFA had wanted £35 million of that, the 5% they claim they've always had. They now say they'll accept £27 million, but the clubs say their final offer is £17 million a year. That £10 million shortfall could spark football's first ever strike. But the Premier League say their offer of £50 million over 3 years is a generous one.
I think one of the game's problems is we've come a little bit blasé to the odd £10 million or the odd £1 million even. To you and I and everybody else, it's an awful lot of money, and 50 million is an awful lot of money, and that's why it's a very reasonable offer.
The Players' Union disagree. They maintain there is an existing deal relating to television income.
They're totally ignoring the history of our agreements. We've never had less than 5% of a share of television monies, and this dates back half a century.
Some club chairmen are already planning tough action against players who strike.
We won't pay them. And I think everybody would understand the reasons for that. Secondly, if it turns out to be an illegal strike, as we believe it is, we would terminate their contracts.
The players and the clubs now have less than a fortnight to resolve this dispute before the first strike is due to take place. Any industrial action would bring chaos to football in England and Wales. And even if agreement can be reached, The whole issue has been a PR disaster for the sport. Felicity Barr, ITN at Premier League headquarters.
Tonight's headlines: the former pop star Jonathan King has been jailed for 7 years for sexual assaults on teenage boys, and 2 men have been charged tonight over 3 recent bomb attacks in Britain. And that's it tonight. We're here again tomorrow. From the entire team, goodbye.
Hello, good evening. The weather's a bit of a mixture over the next few days, so a fairly changeable scene, rain at times and a blustery feel to things. So tonight the rain pushing ever southwards, 1 or 2 hefty bursts into this position over the next hour or so in England and Wales. Temperature's no problem at all, what with all this weather activity. It's a different story further north, clear skies, lead temperatures down to 0 inland in Scotland and a number of wintry showers around as well. Into tomorrow morning, let's see that rain just lurking there in the far south. That moves off the scene and we've drier, brighter weather tucking in behind. 1 or 2 wintry showers, at least in nature there in the north, but a chilly feel to things. These are the sorts of temperatures we can expect. 6 in Inverness, Neath Seas 9 as well as Exeter. So I'll leave you with a recap of tomorrow's weather and say good night.
Powergen, bringing the essentials to life.